Welcome to the Excelsior Health Podcast. Guys, this is the podcast for busy professionals and busy parents that are looking to transform their health. What we do, guys, on the podcast is we break down the complicated, confusing aspects of health and fitness, and we give you guys real and simple tactics, strategies that you guys could go put into your everyday life and start to see real results. Today's episode, guys, is a good one. I am super excited. I'm going to be interviewing our newest and coolest member to the coaching team, Coach Emily. So thank you for being here today, girl. Emily is, I think, going on almost 7 weeks as our head coach at TFW Sauga. And, one of the things I thought that would be super cool is to interview her, get her perspective. I think she's a very special and unique person, and she's got a lot of wisdom when it comes to the health and fitness spectrum of things. So today we're going to go a lot of places, guys. So number one, if you're a student of Training for Warriors, you're going to get to know Coach Emily a little bit more on the personal side. But if you're someone who just follows the podcast and you want to learn, we're going to cover some different topics that you're definitely going to get some great takeaways. All right. So Emily, first question I have for you, my girl, is how did you fall in love with fitness, and give us a little bit about your fitness story when things really just took off and changed.
For sure. And thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to be part of this podcast. For me, it started all the way in childhood. So my mom put us, a sibling of 4, and we're done ballet as a child. So that was my first experience of movement, my first love of movement, and just getting into my body and having the integrity in ballet is those tiny little angles, positioning your foot, the way your hand looks, the way your face looks. So all of that was brought to my awareness at a very young age. And then from there, going on to life, I grew up on a farm. I was always doing heavy labor work, right? Lots of hay bales, movement, lots of walking, a lot of just laborious things that you would do on a farm. Farmer carries. Let's go. I always did that.
Farm girl. Farm girl in the city. Let's go.
So that's where my strength kind of stems from. And I think my dad, he was a speed skater in his youth, and he also had the farm. So when I looked up at my dad and I saw these speed skating trophies, as I got a little bit older, I wanted to embody that. I felt like an athlete, but I never really thought I was. But I seen that the trophies spoke really loud. So from there, going through ballet, wanting to do some kind of sport, I chose running. So running was my first serious sport at this day. For a decade, 16 to 26, I did marathons. I trained for it, would run 4 hours. I would wake up before the sun was up, before school, and I just would run, wake up and go. And it wasn't until I started to get into some DVDs, P90X, things like that. And I just remember there was one moment where, as a teenager, as a young adolescent, life is life. And I just kind of slacked on my fitness. And then I took a break. 4 weeks went by. I went back to my DVD that was once so easy. And when I went back to it, it was hard. And that was my first realization that if you don't stick to your fitness, if you don't always apply it, yes, muscle has memory, but it's hard to get back into it. It's almost as if you're starting at square one. And just feeling so out of shape after once being able to do that with such great ease, because I did it all the time. I said to myself, I will never let 4 weeks go by again. And from that moment in my adolescent years, I don't think I've skipped 4 days in a row ever. And here I am, 30, not 30, but 25 years later.
Yeah. And for you, so you went through the running phase.
Yeah.
That was a big part of starting to be consistent with fitness. Like you said, you did the DVDs, P90X. Yeah. When did this transition happen to yoga, Tai Chi, lifting some heavy ass weights? Kind of connect the dots on those journeys.
So obviously running, it's a lot of endurance, a lot of cardiovascular health, which I obviously had, but I felt it in my legs, running for 4 hours, running for 2 hours, I felt it. So I needed some kind of counterbalance. I kind of put the dance aside. I did the ballet, the jazz, the hip hop. That was in my youth and childhood. And then when I was that adolescent, I saw yoga. I saw it as a stretch. The P90X, I remember putting that DVD on and watching it, right? And I'm one to say it was hard because not that it was hard to do, but it's so slow. And as a marathon runner, as somebody who had high energy, to do something that slow was like
It's different,
boring,
right?
boring and different. And why would I? But that's where I really cultivated my discipline. That's where I really cultivated my will to really just stick to something and see what it can do. And then eventually, I remember that P90 was like my first little experience. I got to the 20-minute mark. I'm like, whoa, I did yoga for 20 minutes. And then the other time I did it for 40 minutes. And then I finished the whole one. And then I kept it as a routine in my life. And then I remember the first time I went into a yoga studio and did a live class, the teacher thought I was already an experienced teacher. And it was in that moment where I was like, if you think I'm already that flexible, that natural in the way I move in a yoga class, I just went for it and I just shot for the stars. And I went and understood yoga, the philosophy, and it became a huge part of who I was. And then when it comes to strength training, this is a long journey of my life. Most of my life has just been in that fitness kind of realm. But I stopped running because I felt my body was saying, 10 years is a long time. I started to feel in my joints. I've had some injuries. And I just soulfully, I felt like it was coming to an end. But I didn't know how to end it because I loved it so much because it was a meditative experience. And I wanted that training without training for a run. So I thought about bodybuilding, amateur bodybuilding. And that's when I started to look into weights and lifting heavy. I hired coaches in the beginning, I hired trainers in the beginning, and I wanted to have that training experience where I was going to be on stage. But the person I am, I'm very holistic, I'm very natural. I really sit rooted in that. And I just didn't feel like it was resonating. That lifestyle
Hmm.
didn't resonate with how I wanted my life to be. So then I made a choice. It's either do that and go against my morals or be a master at my craft, which is also the yoga. So then from there, as much as I loved training for that kind of direction I could have gone to, I chose one. So I chose to be a master at my yoga craft, all the while never wanted to lose the benefits of what strength training can do for the body. So I kept that alive in my life always.
Gotcha. So part of the journey and like the progression was, dancing. Then it turned into running. Then it got into the yoga. Then you picked up strength training, and now it's this combination of all those things.
Yes.
Side story: one of the when I was going through the interview process with Emily, I just vividly remember this moment as I'm looking. We have tons of candidates applying, and I see your name. And I'm like, okay, this is a normal name. So I look at this name, and then afterwards I see your bio, and a lot of the things that stood out was yoga. And I was like, I don't want another like yogi person who doesn't lift. And then you had sent the video, and I clicked the video, and I was like, oh, okay, this girl's a pretty girl. She has like a presence. She looks healthy and fit, and then you spoke really well. But even to your point, like holistic, hippie, like just free. Like I seen that vibe going on in your background. But then as I did a little bit more research on your Instagram, I saw, yes, there was the yoga practice, but I saw the running. I saw the speaking to the camera about the lifestyle habits. I saw the lifting, that you actually lifted weights. And those were the things that really intrigued me to say, you know what? I think this girl really aligns with our culture at TFW. Like I want to learn more about her.
Hmm. For sure.
Um, in terms of, so that's like how you kind of got into fitness. Give a little bit of background in terms of coaching. Like how long have you been coaching? Give some insight to that.
So for me, I've had quite a bit of experience teaching. So that was where my career kind of started in the beginning. I worked with children, and for me, I've always wanted to serve. I've always wanted to teach, help, be there for humans. That's the only job I could see myself doing. And I started with toddlers. I started with infants. I got to preschool, got to read one. I ended up having a, small little holistic pod, and I was teaching grade 5, 6. And then it was with this experience, I wanted to be a little bit more in the mature mind because I knew that my knowledge and my wisdom would speak a little bit more deep to that mature um, human. And then with that, I just wanted to get a little bit more into that mature mindset. I felt like I had really good wisdom, and felt like I had some really good deep stuff that would resonate and hit home to the mature person. So with that, I went into life coaching. I got my certification with Neuroscience Center in Toronto, and I was just really intrigued on that mindset. Really intrigued with how the emotions play a part of how we can see and establish habits and how to really get these habits to be part of who we are. So even though I was into my personal fitness journey, when it came to me evolving throughout my career, when I was working with somebody who was looking for that life coaching um, guidance, I was always trying to bring in fitness, always trying to bring in mindfulness, always trying to bring in if you're stressed, if your nervous system is always going, how can we just bring that more into regulation? So some breath work, and then are you exerting your energy in any way, shape, or form? And I'm a high like as a runner, I really believe that you needed some kind of outlet, do something that you enjoy, move, and then you can have that downtime and settle into that. So that's where coaching started. A little bit of life coaching here and there. I've always been serving, always been molding the mind in the beginning and then now molding a little bit more in that adulthood of working with people and setting habits, setting goals and achieving them. And then it just being what I'm really interested in with the fitness, it just always intervened with my yoga, right? Let's do meditation, let's stretch a little bit, let's have that downtime.
Yeah, and those are some of the reasons why, I was so excited to bring on Coach Emily on the team is because she just has these different flavors of health and fitness where it's not like a bodybuilder where there's nothing wrong with bodybuilders, but there's just this one way of doing things. Where for us at Training for Warriors, there's a lot of like parts to the equation. It's yes, lifting weights and training, but it's the mobility, it's the mindfulness, it's how we connect our fitness to improve us in the other areas of our life, but it's also the nutrition, it's the recovery. So she's very smart and she's very knowledgeable in a lot of these areas. So even behind the scenes, the way I would kind of describe you so far in the first 7 weeks of being here, very consistent, but very cool. Like just calm, cool. She's someone that you want to spend time with. She's not maybe as crazy energy, low energy, but she's very consistent. She's very cool. What I do want to go back with a little bit, Emily, is when you started your journey, obviously getting into fitness, you just shared it. What are some mistakes that you think you made and that now is you have a completely different mindset towards when it comes in health and fitness?
I would love to share this because I definitely walk the walk. Even though I have my stories and you could assume that I was fit all along, no. I've had times where I obviously overran, overdid cardio because I wanted to lose fat. I didn't know how to necessarily eat all the time. I've had, as life is life, I've had phases and struggles where I was emotionally just distraught or just things were heavy, and I overate and I use food as comfort for a long time, just overdoing it, um, destroying my nervous system by constantly being hard on myself, not regulating my sleep, not really being aware with the food I was eating. And I think now, when it comes to me wanting to coach somebody, I'm really looking at them as a whole entire being. So, really seeing where their mental body is, really seeing where their emotional body is, and then giving them the right materials that they can do healthily in this moment and work with that. So, there is absolutely no shortcuts when it comes to fitness. And I've tried to take all the shortcuts. I've done some fasts, which was respectful in that time. But looking back, I probably was white knuckling my way just a little bit. And I was probably deep down thinking this would get me to my results even quicker. But then what would happen is that my body is now eating my muscle, right? As much as I wanted to have more muscle in my body, if I wasn't fueling it appropriately enough, it was just a little bit more chaotic. And then I would be at square one. So for me, it's just knowing that there's no shortcuts, knowing that you have to start with where you are in this present moment and working with what you got, and knowing that with what you got, that will, that desire, that passion is enough to start somewhere, and taking that one step after the other is going to get you there. It might feel like a long journey, and I feel like I've took the longest route to my journey, but here I am, and I'm guiding people with that awareness.
And then in terms of when it comes to training, some of those mistakes, I know you've mentioned to me in the past is like, yeah, I went through those periods where I would just do cardio. How did that transition to strength training?
Because
Like, how did you have that realization of like, okay, like me just running and doing this long distance stuff is not going to give me the body that I want or not give me the full picture of health. Like I need to lift some weights. So how did that shift happen where you realize, yeah, I can't just do cardio. I gotta lift some heavy ass weight.
I think when I looked at runners, like the marathon runners, the way they aged and the way that their life was, it just, for me, if you have more muscle, you're going to age gracer. If you have more muscle, you're going to be that much more reliant on yourself rather than always asking for help, or I didn't want to feel weak.
You're right.
And I felt sometimes when I overran, I felt a little bit weak. I remember there was times I was running and then I would turn and I would almost trip because I didn't have a good core.
Mm.
And then I would even admit and say, like, my core is weak. I need to work on some more ab strengthening exercises. So I just realized, to have more muscle, I feel like my body was just going to be that much more put together, and I would be able to get into my elderly years with more greater gracities than just being a lean, slender runner.
And even recently, to be honest, as you've been training through our TFW system and adopting our philosophies, one of the things you mentioned to me too is like, man, I used to really train always in this hypertrophy phase of like 8 to 12 reps. But lately you've been experiencing more like 1 rep maxes, 3 reps, 5 reps, and really pushing the intensity of lifting weights.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it because even with uh, Coach Carmela, she said this, but a lot of people work out and not everyone trains. And when I was in my marathon days, I was training. I was training for that race, and I loved that training aspect, and I knew my numbers. And then the last couple of years, as much as I was really focusing on getting better at my yoga in terms of my asanas and my practices, I was just showing up for my workouts.
Mm.
And I feel like now that I'm in the TFW system and I'm doing all the workouts here, I'm literally training and I'm remembering my numbers, right? I know how much I can deadlift right now. I know my max pull-ups. And before I was always aiming for, if I can do 6, 7 chin-ups with great and ease, but training here, I did 10 because I did my max. And I was like, okay, I don't even know I could do 10.
Hmm.
So even that has a huge impact on my body already, and just being here for 7 weeks.
Love that. And those are all important, like really, really important nuggets that people can take away is, hey, don't be the person who just falls on the cardio side and you just do cardio. But hey, you could go for long runs and you could, fit in that aspect of training, but accompany that with 2, 3, 4 days of strength training to make a more complete picture. And then like Emily just said, is like, that's a whole reason why we're called training for warriors. It's not called workout for warriors. It's not called exercise for warriors, because working out and exercising is sometimes it's just random movement. It's sweating. And when you do things like that, it's better than nothing, but it's not going to produce consistent results. Training is where the magic happens, where you actually have a goal and your program is designed to work towards reaching those goals. So for those of you guys that are maybe starting your journey, it's less than a year in, it's such a big difference when your mindset is, hey, I'm training, I'm giving every workout intensity, that when I add all these workouts together, it's going to add up to a big picture of results and progress. All right, so maybe one more thing in terms of mistakes. When I'm looking at you in the back, you always have these healthy meals prepared and prepped. Did you ever have, that evolution of like you were eating a terrible way, or has it always come kind of natural to you eating?
No, that didn't always eat the best. I had to learn the hard way. Um, I've looked and guessed and thought that that might be good, but being in the fitness industry for the last couple of years, I definitely became a lot more knowledgeable when it came to macros. I was actually a vegetarian for 7 years. I'm
Damn.
gonna throw that out. I don't think you know that yet. I was vegan for 7 months. So true story. That was when I was a runner. Now that looking back, I get it because the higher carbs, I was burning through it. I would not suggest that. Building muscle, you really do. And I know there's vegan athletes out there and they have amazing muscle mass, and I love that for them. But for me, I chose to eat meat again just because it's that easy, clean way to get protein in.
Yeah.
And you really do need protein for muscle building. Also, protein doesn't store on your body as fat. So when I just look at my food, it's completely different than what I used to. I was a little bit scared as an adolescent, as a young woman. I was scared to gain weight back because I know I fluctuated very easily. And at this point, now understanding my body and going through all that, trial and error, making those mistakes, learning the hard way, I do see food as fuel for the system. I do see food as making sure that you're giving your body enough for what you want it to expel out. So if you're training, if you're lifting hard, if you're expecting results, you really need that nutrients and that fuel. And allow it to really serve what you're actually going to put yourself towards. So don't be scared of food. It's fuel, your body needs it, and it's always communicating to you in terms of cravings. It always speaks some kind of wisdom. Your body is the most intelligent thing that you have, and if you're able to listen to what it's communicating and you're serving it right, you can go very far. And that's my direction. I want to go very far.
Yeah, and when it comes to the whole vegan, vegetarian, and all the different styles of eating, I think where I stand on it is like, unless you have some real moral compass about eating meat, which that makes a lot of sense for some people, it's not the most healthiest and optimal way, to lose fat and things like that. There's lots of people that are vegetarians that they've figured out ways to get good sources of protein, but it is harder. So that's what Emily's kind of saying is like the best and most convenient sources of protein are typically animal-based proteins, right? So just keep that in mind. Like for most people, there's a lot of people that have gone the vegan route and quickly realize this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Being vegetarian is a little bit different as there's a lot more options. So just kind of keep that in mind. So that's good to know. So Coach Emily, what's the type of client that you love to work with that you think personally that when they're around you, you're seeing them 3, 4 times a week, you can have the biggest impact on them?
So for me, I've always loved being able to serve. And when I was working with children and when I was a teacher, I've always connected with the moms. I always had this little bit of rapport, and they always knew what I was doing at home. I was either running or training, and we always had that little rapport going. So I got really comfortable working with that mature professional who's thinking about starting their fitness journey or who knows just enough and they just want a little bit more guidance or a little bit more of a push. So with most of my experience, that's been the people I've been working with, people who are starting, have some knowledge, and have that will and have that desire and are hungry to learn. Because when they're hungry to learn and they want to listen and they want the feedback, being able to see them with where they are right now in this moment, I'm giving them just enough to get them going so they can take that next step further.
And even with the busy mom or the busy career-oriented woman that's navigating through her job and her family life, what do you think is like the main challenges that kind of stop that person from being healthy and
They put their family first, and I totally respect that and understand that, but if your cup is not filled, you can't spill over.
Mm.
So when it comes to me even being in the yoga studio and I've saw people come in, I take a lot of time, not a lot of time, but I take time to make sure that they're connecting to themselves. Take time to make sure that they're grateful for themselves, to make sure that they're breathing and regulating their nervous system enough so when they go back out into the real world or go back out to their family, they're just that much more grounded so they can be that much more themselves, be that much more happy so the ones around them can benefit from that. If they have that love, if they have that self-care, then everyone else around them is happier and that just makes the world a better place.
Yeah, and that's a huge mindset shift that we really try to work on here at Training for Warriors. And I think through this podcast as well, it's taking the busy professional, I would say probably 65% of the people in our program, they're typically women, the other 35% is probably guys. But it's this mindset that if I spend this money on myself, I'm taking away from my family. If I spend these, 4 hours a week of training and doing this, I'm taking away from my family. And it's the furthest thing from the truth,
It's the
right?
opposite.
It's the opposite, right? It's if you are investing in yourself, which is your health, your happiness, your ability to be a better leader, all the people that you love and are depending on you, their life gets better. So it's such a big shift that we try to do through our stories of the day, just the gentle reminders, is getting these people to realize like, no, like this is not optional for me to work out and take care of myself. This is a necessity because literally everybody in my life that comes in encounter with me is going to be better because I'm taking care of myself. Is there any other commonalities that you see amongst these people that you work with that, hey, they're busy professionals, they put their family first? What are maybe some other challenges that you kind of typically help most of our busy professionals overcome?
I feel like a lot of the busy professionals, they're just always on that go. They're always moving, soccer game, always a huge to-do list. They have their career as well. So I feel like the people that I've worked with, or the people who've come to me, they're looking for that time to just let go. That time, and this is coming from that yoga background,
Hmm.
just time to be still And I feel like that's so important. Like you said, if they're not creating that space for themselves, then they're just going to be a little bit more stressed in their present moment, whether that's with their kids, whether it's at job. And I've already experienced, when if you're not giving yourself that little bit of space where that you can either ground yourself or be with your a little bit of breath work, right, a little bit of nervous system regulation, you're a little bit stressed and you have that anxiety energy. So if you're grounding and bringing your energy down intentionally, and you can let some things go, the stresses go, then you're that much more present within your career or that much more present in front of your children, and they get the best form of you. So I feel like that's kind of the common theme that I've seen with the people I've worked with is just making sure that they're here now and I lost it.
No, and I'm that type of person, to be honest. Like, I know so many of our clients are that, but it's like we're going nonstop. I have 3 small kids, one that's an adult, but it's like there's always some sort of event. Plus, I've learned over these years is like, man, I got to train. I got to push myself. I got to go hard. So it's funny, like the last 5 weeks or so, Coach Emily, at the end of our hurricane, which is like a cardio session that we do as a staff, one of the most important and hardest workouts of the week, she's spent about 15, 20 minutes with us doing mobility, doing stretching. But the thing that I love the most is like those last 5 to 7 minutes where you take it to more like a mindful practice.
Mm.
And I'm sitting down and I get to like let go of all the things that's on my mind. I get to focus on my breath work, that calming and grounding that she's talking about. That little bit of 5 to 7 minutes just makes me feel that much better to recover from the hard ass workout I just did, but then to be more present for the rest of the day. So I know that's something that you bring to TFW, that sometimes that's going to be within the workout. Sometimes that's behind the scenes when we're talking to our clients, but I'm very excited. Maybe we'll talk about it on the podcast on some of the things that we're going to put into practice to help with the more recovery in the mindset for a lot of
Yeah.
our clients.
And I think with what you were saying there too, it's almost like a reset. And I know for me, when it came to my training for forever, it's after I'm done working out, after I'm done, pushing my body to its max as hard as I can, I feel like a new person.
Mhm.
And I feel like we all want that, a little bit of that reset, a little bit of time to just ground ourselves and then just go about our day.
Yeah, and I actually just recently had a conversation with one of our newer students, and she was saying, "Coach, I feel like my body just got like run through by like a truck or something." And it's not the best feeling that you want. You don't want to be beat up like that. But she's basically been in her first 6 weeks of training. She's training harder than she ever has. And what I told her, I said, "Hey, like you're working hard, but now the thing that you got to realize is, are you recovering hard? Because if you just train hard at a high intensity and you don't get adequate sleep, you aren't doing things to kind of minimize your stress, you aren't eating properly, yeah, your body's going to be beat up." So just so everybody understands, like when we talk about Excelsior Health, there's all these little components to the picture that complete that. It is the training, but more importantly, especially as you reach that 40s and up, it's how well do you recover? That's what's going to make you the healthiest, strongest, more energetic version of yourself. What I would love to know, Emily, is like, what are mistakes? You now being a little bit more mature, having more experience in different coaching backgrounds. What are the mistakes that you think most coaches make that now you look at fitness a little bit differently?
Yeah, Coach Corey, I feel like when I go to the gym, I see trainers with their clients, and sometimes they're on their phone. Like the integrity for me is really big. I don't feel like everyone's really, they can have a program and put everyone through it. And what's the purpose of this program? Is it just to exhaust them? Is it just to make them feel like they move their body and then that's it? For me, like that's not enough. Like that's why I really resonate with the training for warriors is because yeah, we're pushing you. Yeah, we're challenging you to a certain extent, but there's a point to it.
Yeah.
That first week we're testing the muscles with that first program or that first week of exercises, and then by the end of the month we're going into our max. So you need those 4 weeks to prepare the body for that 1 rep max. Whereas when I go in and I haven't gone and applied to commercial gyms for that reason, I won't. I know I won't resonate there because I don't want to just be a random person. I don't want to just have a random program and just kind of go through the motion. For me, it has to be intentional, has to be mindful and it has to have a reason. So the training here really speaks a lot of volume.
And the other thing too is when you're talking about like just some trainers, the mindset is the workout I'm doing hard, which it doesn't always have to be hard and crazy where you're beating someone up. The mindset is, hey, what I'm doing cool, right?
Yeah.
Or is what I'm doing new? And like that's just not how we function. Like a lot of the things that we do are tried and tested that people have been doing for years. People do push-ups, right? People do chin-ups that can, right? Squats, lunges. Sometimes it can look boring, but oftentimes boring is effective. And then I think the other part of it too is like in those training sessions, like are the coaches building rapport? Are they building connection?
Yeah.
Or is it someone on their phone like, yep, good
Yeah.
job, Emily. Yep, that's it.
And are they considering because we have our mind, we have our soul, we have our body. Those are the three pillars. So we are a lot of times in the fitness industry, it's all about the body. It's all about, the physical strength. It's all about, just being in that area. But I always want to look a little bit more. Where's your mindset and how's your soul? How's your emotions? And I feel like that plays a huge factor. Even quite recently, you know, if someone's not 100% coming to the dojo, they're not feeling 100%, I'm taking that consideration. We don't need to push you and stress you. Let's listen because you're, like I said, the body's always communicating. It's the most wisdom teacher that you have if you can be able to listen to it. So some days, if you're not feeling 100%, but you're still showing up and going through that motion, but we're accommodating that mental body, that emotional body, it still speaks of volume in your life.
So give me some like, if we were to give some advice to some of the busy professionals watching this, especially about like the nervous system, the emotions that have to go with health. What are some simple tactics that they can use to basically control those things or improve those on their journey?
So box breathing is a huge one. So it's a 4 count inhale breath, a hold for 4 count, 4 count exhale breath, and then a hold for four. Let me do that again. So there's the box breathing. It's a 4 count inhale, 4 count hold, 4 count exhale, 4 count hold. And this is supposed to regulate your nervous system. It's supposed to just bring everything a little bit more into ease, helps alleviate anxiety, helps alleviate stress, helps alleviate fear. So I often teach that in my yoga classes, and I know I'll be doing it when it comes to the dojo, the Elysian flow. And
Is there like specific times? Like, do I wake up in the morning and do this? Is this at night? Or is this just like I'm feeling
this
tension?
one is whenever you feel stressed or whenever you're feeling a little bit, that, if you're in a car and there's a lot of traffic and you feel the stress building, box breathe. Or breathe in for 4 and make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. So
Gotcha.
it could be an inhale for 4, exhale for 6 to 8, but you want that little bit of extra exhale breath to your inhale. Other ones, rising your arms up overhead, that opens up through the lungs and that allows you to get a deeper breath in. There's a lot of work we can do with breath that I'm not going to spell out everything right now.
Hmm.
It can be quite intense, but essentially, this is going into that yoga philosophy. It's pranayama, it's life force. So, breath is everything. So, even when it comes to lifting, you'll hear us cueing breath, making sure that you're breathing in deep because it's very common, especially in the fitness industry, that if you're a beginner, you might even notice yourself, you're holding your breath and you're not even aware because you're thinking about so much the stance, the form, the weight that you're lifting. Am I doing a good job? And now all of a sudden you're not breathing. And I know that was one for me way back in the beginning days. But then through that running, having that breathing pattern happening through that running period, and then going into the gym and then lifting heavy, making sure that my breath was right. It just allows the system, the body in itself, to be that much more effective.
Another thing that I always notice with you when I like your story pops up on my Instagram is whether it's like at nighttime after a shift, but typically a lot of times in the morning is you're outside, you're in nature, like you're getting sun exposure. How does that impact your nervous system, your emotions?
So nature is a huge one for me. If you want to have any answers or look deep into nature, I think Nikola Tesla had mentioned that one. Even Einstein, a lot of these, geniuses in this lifetime had looked into nature. So when I say that I'm more on that holistic side, I want to look closer into nature. I'm looking at what's the most natural way. So waking up in the morning, getting that sunlight right into your eyes really kind of wakes up the body. Even before bed, if you can avoid some of the, I know right now we're the common light, having that red light glasses, so
Yeah.
that protection
Mm.
helps the body get prepared to go into sleep. And yeah, just being out in nature is so good for the human vessel in itself, because we are natural beings, we are sentient beings. So being able to connect, having your bare feet on the ground is huge. It brings that regulation, it brings that grounding energy out.
Yeah, for those of you guys that have been following the podcast, like the whole model that I created as a coach through just listening to just super smart people, super healthy people, was the Excelsior Health, right? And it's these 5 pillars that I believe personally creates this Excelsior Health. A lot of times what we talk about is we talk about training, which is inside. A lot of the time we're lifting weights. A lot of the things that we talk about that we dabbled in today too, nutrition. We talked a little bit about rest and recovery. But 2 areas that I really believe are important to health is building a resilient mindset. But what you were just talking about right now is positive environment. So positive environment there's so many little parts that go into it. I think relationships play a big part in your positive environment, your routines and rituals. But one of the elements that I think is so important and underrated is exactly what Emily's talking about. It's nature. It's being outside. That dramatically improves people's health, where we're walking outside, we're getting the sun exposure. Another really common thing is being in the forest, right?
Mhm.
Japanese call it forest bathing. So if you find yourself as a busy professional wound up, stressed out, your mood is low, increase the amount of time that you are outside. It will make a big difference on your mood, your nervous system, even your recovery for your training and the other things that you got to do in your life. I guess final question is, you're sitting here, Emily, Coach Emily, about to make a huge impact in Training for Warrior Saga. What would be like maybe some final advice to the busy professional who's listening to this podcast right now, and they're on the fence? They hear all the good information that we're giving them, but they're like, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I can invest in coaching and if I could be consistent. I don't know if I could even transform my health. What would be some maybe final advice to give them?
I think the big one that always spoke loud in my life was, if you're healthy and feeling good, you can have a million wishes. And if you're not, if things are getting a little bit stagnant, if you're not feeling 100%, if you're getting a little bit sick, you have one wish, and that's to be healthy.
Mhm.
And when you build muscle, when you work on your strength, you build your immune system, you build your capacity to get into an elderly age with greater ease, greater grace. And I think that's an important one for me. Is as much as we're young, right? We have that, we're capable of lifting heavy, we're capable of, training hard, but there's going to come a day where we're going to be in those elderly years, and like, what did we do um between all those years of here and then? And I've seen it in my life, where I can see if you are not moving, and actually the day you stop moving is the day you get old.
Mhm.
Fact. So that's the thing. Like, I don't want anyone to now suddenly feel like they're older than they have to be, older than their actual age. We can change our metabolic age by training,
Yeah.
by pushing the system, by you know, just creating that cardiovascular health, right? Which is through the hurricane
Yeah.
here. And
Through steps, getting normal, just walking
yeah.
more, all those things. Yeah.
So for me, like, not moving is never an option. And if we're not completely healthy and well, we're going to have one wish, and that is to be. So the way to prevent that is to make sure that you're continuously moving, any way, shape, or form. Find what really speaks loud to you and do it with everything you got.
And I would add in too, like, it's funny that you said that quote because previous episodes, I've probably said that quote so many times. Our 10-year anniversary, when I was doing one of my speeches, because I really believe in it. Like, there's nothing, like, when you're sick and you're dealing with disease, you don't care about nothing else besides,
No.
can I please get healthy?
Yeah.
Can I please be normal? But the other part that people don't realize is, like, all of our dreams, all of our big goals, all these crazy endeavors that we're thinking about in our life, they're all dependent on the foundation of being healthy. As soon as that foundation cracks and falls apart, those things become so much harder. So to me as a coach, and I guess as a business owner, it's always just weird to me when people are like, oh man, like $500, like I can't afford that. But meanwhile, I go to the restaurants and like the restaurants are full. You know, you go to the airports are full. You go to the mall where we're just buying crap, it's full. So my challenge for a lot of busy professionals that are listening to this, that if you don't have a coach or you're not part of a program, I guarantee if you go into your credit card statement, if you go into your life, there's things that you're spending money on that's taking you away from your longevity. It's taking you away from your health. And you could redirect that to make this process easier, right? So if you're someone out there that like wants mentorship, you want support, you want to be surrounded by other busy professionals, that's exactly what Coach Emily does. That's exactly what we do is we help those people be consistent with their training, understand their nutrition habits, and then do some of these practices that comes with building a resilient mindset and crafting a more positive environment. Other than that, I think that's it, girl.
All right.
So I kind of put this on Emily last minute, and she was fantastic today. And I just want to say, hey, I'm so proud of you so far. I know being new to training for warriors is not easy. There's a lot of things that come with it. It's a lot of learning. But as I said earlier in this episode, Emily is consistent. She's cool. She's a hard worker, and she's always really ready to grow. So I look forward to kind of mentoring her and getting the best out of her. And I look forward to her bringing all the unique things that she brings to the table and helping many of our clients. So come work with Emily. That's what we want. All right, guys. So this was a great episode. Hey, share this one out. If you're someone who's looking to get mentorship, you want to get coaching, you want to do strength training, but you want to do it in a positive environment, what we have for you guys is visit TFW Sauga. You can get a 2-week free trial to really sample the program and see if it's right for you. And then also what we do is we book an in-person consultation where we show you around. You visit the facility and we deep dive into your goals so we can create a nice personalized program for you. I'm your host, Coach Cory Fernandes. We got Coach Emily, and we are out beasting.